aero drag strip?
Yeah. Okay, well we're gonna do some metal fishing downtown Houston style today.
We're downtown, baby.
And by U of H downtown. Pretty neat little spot. I'm surprised there's no homeless people out here. But yeah, I'm here with JJ, and let's see what we can catch.
I can feel the rocks.
Is there rocks? Yeah, there's a lot of rocks down there. How is it so clean downtown Houston, huh? I'm stuck. What is up? Well, as you can tell, got the transmission pulled out of the Integra. It's got a little bit of a third gear grind, way high up in the RPMs. This is pretty common with these transmissions, the B series transmission. So today we're gonna go ahead and rip it apart, replace the Synchros, get that taken care of. And yeah, I wanted to look inside and see the condition of the clutch anyways. Apparently it's a competition clutch stage 2. It has about, from what I was told, about 20,000 miles of some daily driving on it. And it kind of does look like it doesn't look too worn down, so I'm not going to replace it. It's supposed to have a comp clutch lightweight flywheel also, which it does. And so I won't be doing anything with that. I'm just going to just cheap out and not replace it, even though this is a great time to go ahead and replace this stuff. I'm not going to replace it, but the throwout bearing sounds a little crappy. I went ahead and bought a Timken one, but I'm not going to use this. I'm going to use a factory OEM throwout bearing, just because I'm pretty sure this is a OE2. If we compare these guys, the Timken one looks real shicey and it's really light. I can kind of take it apart. I don't like the fact that I can take it apart. So Synchrotech is going to be what I'm using to replace the Synchros. I'll get into that when I get into that. I got some seals also. Okay, so where do we want to start at? All right, so this is a transmission out of the Integra, obviously. If you have a transmission from a B16 or something like that, it's pretty much the same thing. All these B series trans is pretty much the same thing. So just looking at it, we're going to call the side that has the starter at the top, and we'll call this the bottom. We're going to start with the bottom with these two bolts right here. We're going to pull them out. There's some springs and some ball bearings we need to get out. So a little pocket screwdriver with a magnet on the end, and there's the ball bearing for one. Let's throw it in a box, and there's two. Don't want to lose these. Okay, so on the top of the trans, we have a 14 millimeter here. We're going to need to remove this bolt. It's basically what holds in the reverse gear. Just throw it in a box. Now we can basically remove all the 12 millimeters that go all the way around this top part of the case, I guess, okay? There's gonna be all these little brackets in the way and things like that. So start yanking them all out. So right here on the end of the trans, this is going to be a 1/2 inch to get this plug out. Your impact probably won't fit on here because the end is real shallow, so you'll need a ratchet. Screw this guy. Now that the plug's out, we're going to need to open up a little clip that's down in here with some needle nose pliers. Just gonna go ahead and put it in between clip and open them up, spread it out, When you do that, you'll hear the gear set kind of fall down a little bit. It's really, really simple, not difficult. Any needle nose pliers will work. And then we can start trying to separate this half from this half. It's gonna be a little difficult because it is RTV'd all the way around. But you've gotta do this first or you'll never get it apart. And you can just lift it off. Sometimes there's a bearing right here. Will stay in the case. But it's really easy to remove. All you gotta do is turn the case upside down, put it somewhere, and just tap it. It usually falls right out. All right, so just a real quick overview of what we're looking at. This is reverse. This right here is the selector for 3rd and 4th gear. This is a selector for 5th gear, okay? The brass part that we have right down under here is the synchro for 3rd, and the brass part up here is the synchro for 4th. They're both gonna get replaced. This collar's gonna get replaced. We're gonna need to remove the reverse selector bracket, 10mm bolts. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and put these with these guys. Put this in here like this so you don't get them mixed up. Okay, and you can pull out reverse. When you pull out reverse, you're gonna wanna pull it out with the shaft. Try not to get in the way of the camera. Okay. All right, next is gonna be the shift selector. It's got 3 10mm also. You notice that this one is a brass colored one. It's a different length than the other 2 that are on it. Okay, so don't get them mixed up. All right, and you just wiggle this guy out and put the brass one back so you don't get them mixed up. Okay, so to get the forks out, you're gonna have to lift all of this out at the same time. The easiest way to get yourself a little bit of grip is get yourself a rag and put it around it and grab everything and come up with it. It's gonna be heavy and you're gonna wanna put it on the floor, probably with something with like cardboard or something. We're not gonna wanna take this apart too much, but let's go ahead and remove this fork, stick it here, remove this fork, stick it here, stick this fork here. All right, so we're working on this shaft right here. Gonna go ahead and move this over. And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna put it back in the transmission. Okay, so right now they're all in neutral. If you can see like the brass and the brass, the brass and the brass, the collars are in neutral. And one thing to know before we start taking this thing apart is the selector gear here. If you look at it, if you look at the new one, let's show you the new one. Then on my new one, that it has this cut in the middle of it right here, okay? And you can see the same cut that's at the bottom right here. So this is, so you don't mix the orientation up, but you can just note that, all right? And all we're gonna do is make sure it's still in neutral, everything's in neutral, because this collar can go down for 3rd, up for 4th. What we're gonna do is we're gonna keep everything together we don't need to work on. And I'm gonna lift everything up above 4th gear synchro here, okay? I'm gonna move it off to the side here. So this is 4th gear synchro here. I'm gonna put it right here. We're gonna replace that. So we're gonna take the selector off and replace this. And here's 3rd gear synchro. All right, so Synchrotech, Synchro, it's a new 3rd gear synchronizer, and it does come with this clip. Okay, I'm gonna just stick this right on here like so. So we'll get this guy now, and we'll take him apart, and we will put this on here like this. We need to, okay, so you can see I have this lined up like that. So on the new selector, if you look, there are some stoppers, I guess you want to call them stoppers or keyways that you're going to have to match up with this guy here to make it go on, okay? what we're going to do. We'll line it up and put it back on. All right. Again, match it up like that. Here's the new 4th gear Synchro. It just goes right on top, and then you need to make it fit right down in there like that. Then we can drop all this back on top. That's 3rd, and that's 4th. Okay. Make sure these shift selector rings are neutral. And pull this back out. Okay. Now there is a washer down here that needs to stay. This guy here. Okay. Keep it there. Put it back with the forks. Kind of match these guys back up. Okay. Put my forks where they kind of need to go. Okay, got everything. Cover this guy back up. Go put it back in the trans. I get these guys lined up first. The shift forks, and then drop it all down. Watch your fingers, because it will try to take your fingers off. Boom. Alrighty. Down in there, looking good. Still in neutral. Everything's cool. Alright, so shift selector can go back in. You want to make sure that all these guys are neutral. Every single one needs to be in neutral for this to go back together. Okay, and then make sure you put the brass colored one back where it needs to be. It's just a different length than the other two. Whoa, okay. And this one back here is kind of in a bad place. Use a magnet to get it down in there. Tighten that guy up. Alright, so reverse can go back in. You can see that it's keywayed, that there is no wrong way to put this thing in. You can only go one way. Okay. Alright, so the reverse gear selector bracket, so make sure you line up this with the pin there, and this opening will need to go around the gear. Like that. Alright, not too bad changing the Synchros out. It's pretty simple. Gonna go ahead and clean up all these surfaces here, put some Honda Bond, get ready to set down the rest of the case. One important detail before we do that is this spacer you have here that pretty much has like a little keyway. You can orient it, or it needs to be oriented in a certain position for the case to go back together. And you're gonna want to face it towards the very top of the trans or towards this vent, this bolt hole here. So you might have to jack with the selector a little bit to get it to go all the way down. Okay. That's all it took, was a little bit. Put it back in neutral. So this little clip around that bearing is a little tricky to get back. You're gonna need to basically take that clip, open it, and then you're gonna use a flathead screwdriver, and you're gonna need to take the gear set and like pull it up, okay, where it will seat, right where that nut is at. There we go. Not too bad. Sorry, it's really hard to film that down in there. And then we can start replacing all the 12 millimeters around the case. this guy is tapered where it won't need any sealant. Just put it down in there hand tight. Don't want to over tighten this because it can crack the case. And here is the reverse gear bolt. So now is a great time to replace the seals, like the axle seals and the shifter rod seal. The new shifter rod boot, the seal, and I got 2 axle seals. And they are different on each side. Yeah, yesterday installing transmission in the Acura Integra, putting it back in, trying to get the transmission up on a jack, and popped the tendon in my left arm, my bicep, okay? Bicep here, I'm not flexing it or anything, but there's this gap I have now in between the muscle and my forearm, which is about 4 fingers. It's just flat, okay? So basically the tendon from my bicep to my forearm snapped, just completely snapped it. I'm trying to pick up that trans, and now my bicep has moved into my armpit, into my shoulder.